In this overview today, we're going to be taking a look at the Wargaming Task Force, the Grey Knights Detachment, which has just come out for the Grotmas calendar. We're going to go through an overview. We're going to look at the stratagems, the enhancements, and also what combinations we can do with this new detachment if you are a Grey Knight player. So stay tuned and we'll see what the Grey Knights new detachment can do.
Coming up is going to be an overview of the brand new detachment that Games Workshop have been releasing for Warhammer 40,000. We're going to look at whether this detachment is going to be a competitive choice, whether it's going to be one that's more flavorful and narrative, and maybe something that you might want to consider trying yourself, or alternatively, what you need to know and look out for if you're going to be playing against some of these new detachments. Now, to take things a little bit further on our members page, and if you want to become a YouTube member, the link's going to be in the description. You are going to get a list for this detachment, something that's super competitive, super flavorful, and we're going to make the most of what we can do with this detachment. Now, as we always say, we will try and help you use the models that you own, and we're going to give you some top combos that you can introduce into your list to really make the most of them. Now, not only that, but you're also going to get loads of additional members content, whether it's our live members lounge where you can get your questions answered, or even dictate our games that we play on streams on Fridays. And on our masterclass series, we go one step further. We show you the list, we show you how to deploy it, and we also show you some advanced tactics. And the best thing about that is that you're going to understand exactly how every single faction plays in the game of Warhammer 40,000, so you don't get caught out at the tabletop. We're all about helping you feel like you're able to compete at the table, and knowing all that information is going to be one of those steps to ensure that you don't get gotcha momented. So enjoy this detachment overview, and we really hope and look forward to your feedback and some of the best ways to play this detachment.
The Wargaming Task Force is up next for the Grotmas calendar Advent Detachments. We're going to be taking a look at this Grey Knights Detachment, a brand new way of playing your Grey Knights. Michael, we're going to do an overview of this detachment, aren't we? We're going to take a look at some enhancements, some stratagems, and we're going to see how this holds up against the Index Detachment. So, what do we get for running Grey Knights in this detachment?
So first off, thank you Games Workshop for another awesome detachment to run and a new way to run your Grey Knights. Hallowed Ground is the detachment rule, and essentially the board's going to be split into three parts. Your deployment zone, no man's land, the opponent's deployment zone. Yes, we've kind of seen this before a couple of times now.
Popular rule now, isn't it?
Yes. So your deployment zone's always your hallowed ground or your zone of purity. No man's land is your zone of purity if at the start of any phase you control half or more of the objective markers.
Right.
And your opponent's deployment zone becomes the zone of purity if you hold half or more of the objective markers in their deployment zone, which is very unlikely because it's usually only got one objective marker in it.
True.
You've probably already won.
Yes, exactly. If you hold your opponent's home objective, good on you. All right. But what do we get for being in these zones? I mean, cool, you've just told us we get something for being in there. What do we get?
So all Grey Knights units get to reroll ones to hit.
Cool, that's really good.
If they're wholly within their zone of purity, they can reroll all of their hit rolls instead.
That's really good.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So this is almost like a more damage-focused detachment rather than the tricks. Now, naturally, Grey Knights, their army rule is actually to leave the table and come back on.
Which is cool, actually, isn't it? Because normally that's the detachment rule. Whereas for Grey Knights, their detachment rule is or their army rule is just leaving the board and coming on the board.
Exactly.
But we are going to lose, if we take this detachment, we're going to lose the auto advance 6 and fly.
So it's quite an impactful rule. Rerolling hits is very good because you've got a lot of lethal hits on your weaponry. So things like your Terminators charging into combat, now getting lethal hits and getting to reroll their hits. You've got a lot more consistency for units that would otherwise seem very mediocre because when they come in to charge, you just roll some 1s or 2s and suddenly your super special silver armoured warriors are actually not very good.
Well, to be fair, playing against Grey Knight players, whenever I've had to face them, it's always been a case of whatever they roll in that first roll, because there wasn't access to re-rolls really in the army. So it was always like those Dread Knights could be really swingy. Now you got re-rolls. So it's pretty good there, right?
Yeah, it's great. So all your Dread Knights obviously going to get those reroll ones to hit. Another significant unit this impacts is Paladins.
Okay, yeah.
Because Paladins hit on 2s, so they're going to get reroll 1s to hit for all of that, which is fantastic. Now, there is an added bonus here for Purifier squads.
Interesting. So one of the units we haven't really seen much. This is the one that, correct me if I'm wrong, but Castellan Crow, Brother Crow, as I like to call him, he is the one who leads them, right?
That's right. So this is kind of Crow's personal detachment. But what we get for Purifier squads is the area of the table that is within 6 inches of Purifiers is also considered your zone of purity.
Interesting. So they're going to be basically pushing out this aura, affecting other units, but we're actually going to see them being like the staple of the list effectively, right?
Exactly. So you can have any of the bonuses you need from being wholly within your zone of purity. You can just stand next to purifiers because they're so pure. They have this radiant area in front of them that is just the
Very
zone of
clean
purity.
boys, aren't they?
Exactly. They're so clean that you just reroll all your hits and you get better. In addition, purifier squads always reroll their hits.
Oh, great. That's amazing.
Cool. Which makes sense because they're always going to be in their zone anyway.
True.
But it is what it is. So yeah, it's actually relatively easy to get access to your zone of purity because you can just take these units and all of that area of the board within 6 inches of them is your zone of purity. Now, the rest of the detachment is a fair bit of emphasis on infantry units and actually stepping slightly away from Terminators, which is quite cool because it gives you a new route to take with your Grey Knights collection rather than just Dread Knights or Terminators.
Yeah.
You now want to take the elite infantry units.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's a breath of fresh air, as I'd like to say, around all
Pure
the
air.
people. Pure air, clean air. But we have got enhancements to look at, right? So what's the first enhancement?
The first enhancement is Mandulian Reliquary. So the bearer, provided the bearer's unit is not battle shocked, gets +3 OC.
Damn.
Which is great because if you're now controlling an objective in no man's land, you can help yourself get that zone of purity.
Man do be holding objectives.
Moving on. Next is Radiant Champion.
Right, they didn't think about much on that name, did they?
No, it's not as fun as the last one.
No.
So Radiant Champion, this is Grey Knights infantry model only. You get precision on all of your attacks, but if you're wholly within your hallowed ground, zone of purity, it's actually called hallowed ground, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Same thing.
You score, if you score a wound on the target, you inflict a mortal wound in addition. So it's like having +1 damage, but it always goes through because it's a mortal. It's like a devastating wound, but in addition.
Man do be stabbing people.
Man do be stabbing people.
And who do you reckon this would be great on?
So a Brotherhood champion gets to reroll wounds against characters. So this is going to be fantastic combined with precision because you're definitely going to kill the character that you fight.
Yeah.
And actually, because you have fights first for the unit as well, character units do not want to charge you because you're going to be able to kill that character before they even get to act. Which is a fantastic enhancement. I really like this one. For me, it'd probably be an auto-include.
Yeah, I think anytime we can boost the damage of a character, especially like in concert with abilities when they lead units and stuff like that as well, it's been fantastic. It's been a proven ability over the course of 10th edition. So if you can get an enhancement like this, it's great.
File of the Abyss is next. He's going to down this file.
Oh, vial. I thought you said file.
It is a file, yeah, PH file. It's infantry only.
Right.
Bearer's unit gets stealth.
What's in this file?
The Abyss, mate.
Oh, fair enough.
That's why they're so stealthy.
And then where is this file good on?
Probably Terminators.
Stealth on Terminators?
Stealth
I mean,
on
it works
Terminators.
well for Death Guard.
It's going to be good, right?
Yeah.
So Terminators, or if you're running a lot of the infantry units that aren't Terminators, again, another Brotherhood champion.
Well, 2-up save on them as well. They're not every Grey Knight unit's got a 2-up save, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty good on that.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Paragon of Sanctity is our final enhancement. It can go on any Grey Knights model, and once per game, at the start of any phase, they can pick a Grey Knights unit that is visible to them within 18 inches, and that Grey Knights unit counts as being wholly within hallowed ground.
Okay, right, cool. So we can just pick a unit and then they get reroll hits.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm sure, I mean, look, maybe stratagems might trigger off if you're in certain things. So it might be good to review this after we've done the stratagems. But overall, I think it sounds good already off the bat. Depends on how many purifier units you get, but it means you're always going to be able to dish out that ability no matter what range you're in.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess that's good. The damage one, definitely sticking on the character. Stealth, maybe, if you've got points.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the Mandulian objective holding one.
I love the name.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Is stealth better? That's a difficult one. Because you'd get +3, and you could be in a Terminator squad with an Ancient in it, or an Ancient's banner. So you could have some really good OC sat on an objective. So time will tell on that one. I'm not really sure. We'll have to look at the stratagems to see whether we then want to take stealth or the OC.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's just jump into stratagems. Let's do that, and then we can overview it at the end, see which ones we'll take rather than other ones, right? So what's the first stratagem?
Sanctified Kill Zone is our first stratagem for 1 CP, and we can pick a Grey Knights unit that is wholly within hallowed ground. and this is shooting or fight phase, they get reroll 1s to their wound rolls. If they're a Purifier squad, they can reroll all of their wound rolls.
I mean, that's pretty good on Crow's unit.
Yes, very good on Crow's unit.
I mean, in all fairness, most of their shots are wounding on 2s anyway against infantry, but
True.
it's still good on all the other shots.
It'll help them out in combat as well.
Yeah.
Strength 6 on most Nemesis Force weapons.
Yeah.
Now it's 3s against most infantry, re-rolling, pretty consistent. But obviously reroll 1s to wound on like a Dread Knight, whatever it might be, is still good. It's a damage buff,
Yeah, absolutely.
which I think is what this detachment is all about.
And with the Purifier's own ability as well, with a +1 to hit and +1 to wound, potentially depending on what they're going into, they could then start to hit much harder with that ability.
Yeah, exactly. Flames of Sanctity is next. 1 CP at the end of the fight phase. You can pick a Purifier squad, and you roll a dice for each enemy unit within 6 inches of them. And on a 4+, they suffer D3 mortal wounds. If Crow's in the unit, it's on a 3+.
So if you've got a 10-man unit, you just like everything in the air just goes, take all these mortals.
Yes.
Potentially.
Cleansing Flames, potentially, on a 4-up.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
3-up with Crow, to be fair. So it's interesting. It's very interesting. If stuff gets left with a couple of wounds left, this could be a nice way of doing it. And obviously you can do it in both players' turns. Next, we've probably got the coolest one. This is Hallowed Beacon. So for 1 command point in the reinforcement step of your movement phase, if you arrive via Deep Strike with an infantry unit that is not a Terminator, and you set up wholly within your hallowed ground, you can arrive 6 inches away from the enemy.
Okay, so 6-inch deep strike.
Yes, but you can charge.
They've got a demon ability.
Yeah, basically as a strat.
Of course they do, because they're the anti-demons.
Yes.
Right, well, this is very, very powerful. So only infantry can do this, though, right?
Only infantry that's not Terminators.
Cool, so no Dread Knight doing this.
No Dread Knight, no Terminators doing this.
Sorry, my heart just stopped then. I was just thinking Dread Knight, 6-inch charging. Don't want that happening.
You don't need to worry about that. Crow, though, 6-inch charge.
You do need to worry about that.
Brotherhood Champion, Strike Marines, 6-inch charge.
With fights first.
With fights first, so that in the hit back, you'll still be hitting them first.
Yes.
So, yeah, this is great stratagem. Because the army rule just allows you to keep recycling units into reserve, you could use this every turn and just 6-inch charge someone, provided you've got Purifiers. And actually what you could do is you could set the Purifiers up 9 inches away, and then you can set up wholly within 6 inches of the Purifiers with the other infantry unit, and then you'll be wholly within your hallowed ground, and you can do a 6-inch charge. So a little bit of comboing.
Yeah, and get your reroll hits as well.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I really like that one.
Yeah, no, I think that's going to actually start to add some interesting plays for Grey Knight players as well. And it's going to make you think, it's going to be another taxing mind game when you're playing this army. You're playing against it of trying to be wary of those threat ranges.
Yeah, exactly. Fires of Covenant is next. 1 CP, start your opponent's movement phase. Until the end of the phase, you'll pick one of your units, and if your opponent ends or is set up within 6 inches with a normal move, advanced move, or a fullback move, then on a 4+, they take D3 mortal wounds. If your unit's wholly within your hallowed ground, you add 2 to the roll. So it's a 2+, they take D3 mortal wounds.
Oh, right. So there's a lot of mortal wounds coming out from this army just by a couple of stratagem plays. I know obviously it's CP, you've got spend to get these abilities off, but it does mean that your opponent has to respect that. Right, which is I think again comes down to you wanting to keep your board presence in the middle of the board and constantly project these stratagems as far as possible and constantly make your opponent go, well, I could just take mortals if I get close to this army.
Yeah, exactly. And if these are Purifiers, then they're always going to be wholly within your hallowed ground, right? So if your opponent moves within 6 inches of your Purifiers, then they're going to take mortal wounds on a 2-up.
Yeah.
And then if they end a charge move also within 6 inches, they're going to take another D3 mortal wounds. Then at the end of the fight phase, if you've got a CP hanging around and it's Crow's unit, then on the 3-up, they're going to take another D3 mortal wounds. So it's quite an interesting stack, and I'm curious to see how it ends up playing on the board.
Well, if you have these Brotherhood champions and have like maybe 3 fights first units with this ability going off, with your Purifiers in the middle of them as well, it's an almost unchargeable army because you can't fight it. If you go near it, you're taking mortals. If you survive the hit back, what's left will just take mortals anyway with stratagem use.
And if you don't charge it, it's going to go into reserve, land 6 inches away and charge you.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you do?
Excellent. I like this attachment. But it gets better, Jordan. Aegis Eternal is the next stratagem. 1 CP in your opponent's shooting phase. You pick a Grey Knights infantry unit wholly within your hallowed ground. You get a 4-up invulnerable save.
Okay, cool. So that's just making up for the fact we're taking units that don't have invols. So like your Strike Marines, your Purgation Squads, and also your Purifiers, you can now give them a 4-up invol.
Exactly. So AP3 and AP4, provided there's no cover involved, of course, you're now going to get a save against it. So this kind of acts like a true silver armor, right? Because if you were reducing the AP, you'd kind of be on a 4+ save anyway.
Yeah.
Against that AP3 stuff. So the last stratagem is the Repelling Sphere.
These names are golden.
You use this at the start of your opponent's charge phase.
Right.
You spend 1 CP and you pick a infantry unit in your army. That infantry unit is -1 to charge if your opponent declares them as part of their charge. So even if they declare multiple units, it's still -1 to charge.
Right.
If they're wholly within your hallowed ground, it's -2 to charge. It's like, you can't, this is a difficult army for melee to engage with.
Absolutely. This is like my worst nightmare come true. One of them.
Yeah.
Necrons was close to it.
Yeah.
But this definitely is up there. I think -2 to charge is fantastic. But here's an interesting one though, because your character you're encouraged to take in terms of the champion has fights first.
Yes.
So that's your anti-combat already built in. Surely you want them to charge you so you can kill them.
Yeah, this is true. However, there might be some units that you actually can't really hurt, because Grey Knights do suffer against some of those higher toughness targets, you know, like Armigers, War Dogs, or even Dreadnoughts, especially anything with -1 damage. So it could be a good way of trying to prevent those units getting to you. And also, it can prevent them from charging units that don't have fights first necessarily. So even from deep striking assets, you can at the start of their movement phase go, right, this unit, I'm going to make the -2 to charge, and now your opponent is not going to deep strike and try and charge them, because it's now impossible. And you can use this after you've seen what maybe cards they've drawn or what they're going to try and achieve that turn. So it is useful.
I see what you're saying, with the plays and stuff. That obviously looking at it from a certain perspective of combat, if you have fights first, it's like your dream come true, because you're like, cool, I'm dictating where this fight's going to happen. But like you said, there are ways around fights first, and this is obviously a really good way to deter other threats from charging you that you wouldn't ordinarily want to charge you.
Yeah, fantastic. So I think we've got a really flavourful detachment here. Yes, you're going to have to run 3 units of Purifiers, I think, to make this really, really work. But it's probably worth it. Your Dread Knights still work in this detachment. You can get some of the buffs from, obviously you can get the reroll hits for sure, and then some of the stratagems work. Having some of those infantry units to drop down 6 inches away and charge is great. You can still take Drago for his 6-inch charge.
You could have 2 6-inch charges going on from a deep strike, right?
Exactly. And the odds of getting one of those are very high, especially with CP rerolls available. So this is a really interesting way to explore a Grey Knights detachment that wants to do damage and has a bit more consistency in doing that damage.
And taking new models. Like, this is what I think all of us were hoping for from these new detachments, is a new way to play your faction with bringing models you wouldn't ordinarily bring to the table. Look, I know like Strike Marines have been taken because, and especially Interceptors, because they can actually do cool abilities on the table and they benefited from the other detachment quite well. But Purifiers coming into it and actually having a place, Crow as well, who's one of the coolest models in the Grey Knight range, actually being able to be used on the table and has a really big place in this detachment.
Yeah.
So it's got some really cool things there with what you can do and what you can bring on the table.
Yeah, exactly. And everything you were already using also still works.
Yeah.
So you can kind of mishmash some of the new stuff, the Purifiers, Crow, and then all of the good stuff you were already using into this detachment. And I actually think we might see this detachment on the tabletop at tournaments.
This was going to be my next question, is do you think this will overtake the Index detachment? Like, what do you think is going to be better overall?
It's a difficult one because there are some fantastic enhancements and stratagems available for the Teleport Assault Force. But this one, I think, we will definitely see at tournaments. Whether it's better or not, I'm not sure, because you can probably score your cards and other points better with the other one, but this does allow you to do a bit more damage.
I guess this is very CP hungry as well.
Yeah.
Because all of the stratagems, like, you're going to be wanting to play 2 a turn effectively in certain situations, certain matchups. So it depends on how your CP regen's coming into it. And
Exactly. And to be honest, they're both very... Grey Knights are a very hungry faction when it comes to command points. But this one, at least, you got a lot of 1 CP strats
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And if you're a Grey Knights player, let us know. Are you excited for this detachment? What units do you see going into a list? But we're going to write a list, aren't we?
We absolutely are, Michael. So we're actually going to write a list now over on our members side of the channel. So if you want to become a YouTube member and watch that video, the link will be in the description below. And we hope you enjoy that over there. But that will be out at the same time as this video. And we'll see you over there next.